Diving into a record today that once again, this is like the first time I've really listened to it. And it's an album that I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it or not, but I feel like it can't be ignored. A lot of people are drawn to this record in so many different ways for so many different reasons. And I have heard a couple of songs from it, but I never really did a deep dive like I did for this episode. It's one that can't be ignored. And I feel like we have to acknowledge you're listening to P is for Punk, and today T is for The Shape of Punk to Come, a album from Refused that has really gained a lot of attraction and gained a lot of just like fame over the last how many decades. But The Shape of Punk to Come by Refused, it kind of asked whether punk even needed to sound like punk anymore. And they really explore that across this album in a lot of different ways. So Refused is from Sweden. They formed in 1991. They were kind of like rooted in straight edge hardcore, political activism, having anti capitalism, very DIY in how they did things. And in the mid 90s, they became one of Europe's most respected hardcore bands of all time. By the time they had The Shape of Punk to Come, they felt hardcore had become stagnant, and they kind of wrote about that a little bit. And they really mix a lot of type of vibes, a lot of type of sounds across this record that we will talk about in a little bit. It's interesting because a really a friend of mine who doesn't really listen to hardcore punk like talks about how much he loves this record. My friend Rob, he's a very like musical, intelligent kind of guy, but we do not listen to the same stuff. And when it comes to this, he's like, "You need to listen to The Shape of Punk to Come." I was like, "All right." I've heard New Noise before, but I never really sat down and listened to this. This album was released January 1st, 1998, under exclusive rights or an exclusive license to Epitaph. Um, I don't know what was going on really in the world of 1998. I would have been 7 years old, but it's I from what I know, the sounds that we hear on this record definitely were not seen in any other records in 1998. So to kind of take a look at some things that came out. Rancid, Life Won't Wait. Americana came out by The Offspring. That is a really good album. God Damn It from Alkaline Trio was out there. Less Than Jake's Hello Rock View. Saves the Day. Can't Slow Down. I can't believe they were around in 98. Saves the Day. Holy moly. And Swinging Utters were also kind of around in 98. All very like legendary bands in their own regard, except for I can't stand Saves the Day. I said what I said, and I'm sticking to that. None of them sounded anything like The Shape of Punk to Come, which is it's just it is such an interesting vibe. Let's start with the artwork actually this time around, because it has this kind of, it's got some red, it's got some like neutral colors a little bit. You get fragmented photos. You have what looks like a guitar, the bottom of a guitar plugged into something, somebody in the streets, people in shows or whatever. But it looks like very like kind of like um classic radio show esque, which you kind of get throughout the album, which we'll talk about as well. But it kind of has like some political propaganda, maybe like vibes to it a little bit, or some sort of movement. I don't know. It's interesting. So like it says, it's got the people's names on it who are in the band. Refuse The Shape of Punk to Come, a chimerical abomination in 12 bursts. It says that. So it's almost like this is a show. This is what it's going to present to you. Now, like I said before, I had only really heard, I think, one song by them off this album before I really listened to it. So I wasn't sure I had my assumptions on what I'm going to hear, but boy, was I wrong. And it kicks off with worms of the senses slash faculties of the skull. And it's just it's got some kind of like spoken word to it in the beginning. It says, the classics. I thought that, the classics would never go out of style, but we would, but they do. I would agree with that. There are a lot of classic songs out there that people love and people just go gung ho about it, but it's like they really wear out their welcome every once in a while. I think of bands like Guns N' Roses. I've said it before. I don't really like them. And yeah, they got some classic songs, but all right, I've heard it enough. I don't need to hear Welcome to the Jungle ever again in my life or Sweet Child of Mine. It's just not something I'm interested in hearing. So that kind of resonated with me with that. But you get this like weird space vibe to it. It's got this feedback. It's got a pretty explosive kind of opening with this jagged guitar riffs going on. And it really like it changes tempo abruptly a little bit. And you have this blend of this hardcore and even like jazz inspired breakdowns a little bit. And you'll see this jazz and funk sound across the record, which is just crazy. At the end, you have this abrupt transition to like a radio dial kind of surfing. You're surfing the radio, trying to find the right thing before it moves into the some synth a little bit. But overall, you have these lyrics of a declaration kind of against war, against complacency, passive consumption, challenging people to think about what's going on in the world and all that kind of stuff. So this is a really like interesting way to suck people into the record. This is a long song. It's a little over 7 minutes long with all of this. And like I said, you have that opening line. They told me that the classics never go out of style, but they do. Somehow, baby, I never thought that we do too. And then it just goes, I got a bone to pick with capitalism and a few to break. They're not letting go. They're not like holding back any punches here. They're making this count. And like I said, in 98, the first day of 1998, this is what you're getting. I could see why people are initially like kind of think about it a little bit. Now, this record, from my understanding, was a commercial failure. People did not pick it up. It wasn't talked about, but within like a handful of years, it becomes this influential post-hardcore record that shows a range across the board and probably has a lot of things into modern punk. One of the notes that I have is that the singing or the screaming, I should say, reminds me a little bit of the Unseen. It sounds similar. Like they have like kind of a similar cadence, a similar type of style. I don't know much about the Unseen, if who their influences were. I do love them. They have some really good music, but they had a record come out in 1999. That was a comp record, and like their first real full length didn't come out till I think like 2006. So I'd be interested to see if the Unseen were inspired by the great Refused here. But yeah, Worms of the Senses, a wild, interesting song. Like, I don't know. And then it goes into Liberation Frequency, which is a totally different vibe than the first one. It starts with the singer singing in a little bit of a falsetto, but then it gets to a singing kind of spoken word-esque. You have the guitar strums and bass beats that are very like jazz like. And then you're getting these these verses. It's saying we want the airwaves back, and then you get the screamer just coming in. Now I don't know if the singer and the screamer are the same person or if they're different people. It sounds obviously it sounds different, but it like the chorus is just smack you right in the middle of the gosh darn face and have that hardcore vocal and that hardcore drumming distortion. And then it goes into this tight start stop dynamic. You got some funk in there. I think overall, like when you're looking at like the words, it's like freedom isn't handed. You have to search for it. You have to get it going. You got to do some work sometimes. But yeah, they really like have this blending groove to it, and then or mix it with this hardcore and punk kind of roots, which is just super super interesting. It really is. And when I'm first listening to it, I'm like, I don't know that I know what I'm going to get for the rest of this record. We're 2 songs in, and we have 2 completely different sounding songs. I would assume because the name of the record is The Shape of Punk to Come, that they were intentional in trying to expand on these sounds. It's not just four chords and singing a melody and things like that. It's all these genres blended into one. The Deadly Rhythm is the 3rd track on the record, and it has some of that jazz feel across the song as well. And along with other blending of genres, you get more funk bass lines with it. You give this a huge chorus, and it's almost like this is a danceable song. And it says, from the transition from um, Liberation Frequency to this one, it says now, a section from the rhythm section. It's got that transition of the radio MC almost talking about what's going to be going on next. And then it talks about the rhythm section. And that's kind of what you get. You get a little bit of rhythm. You get something that you can shuck and jive to, if you will. It's and then you got lines of this union that made us powerless is talking over our heads, claiming prosperity in a downward spiral plan. It's this critique about being stuck in a routine, stuck by the deadly rhythm of the production line. The power that made us unionless is taking out our hands. Like, these lyrics are impactful. These dudes have experienced some things and understand really what goes on in a lot of different areas of the world, in areas of like work, routine. There's so much monotony and routine, but you get stuck in that rhythm. You get stuck in that same course of action, the production line. You go into work. I worked in factories back in the day, and it was monotonous, and it's like, it sucks being stuck in that routine and conforming to all this. It should be questioned, and it should be looked at. So it's really a powerful song. Kind of shows that punk can be a little groovy while remaining confrontational a little bit. Next one, we get Summer Holidays versus Punk Routine. It is a 4-minute song. It has this old school hardcore feel. Vocals are a little more clean on this one, not so much screamy. You get a little bit of it here and there. The guitar and drums kind of follow this staggered punk flow a little bit. Kind of alternates between like something a little more clean and something a little more chaotic throughout of it. More melodic in this situation, more melodic than the other songs that we've heard before. And really like looking at whether punk has become another routine or a lifestyle brand. Now, I can't really speak on the brand of punk in 1998 because I was in like 2nd grade, and I think I was listening to Will Smith when I was in 2nd grade. Big Willie Style, did that come out around then? Something like that, I was singing I'm going to Miami while while Refused is kind of preaching the word and letting the people know what's going on. I was just a blissfully ignorant little boy, and sometimes I wish I could still be. But I maybe punk was becoming a little bit of a lifestyle brand at that time. I don't know. I don't know. I know there was more like commercially punk esque out there, like that you were hearing on the radio. You had Green Day, you had Offspring, all that kind of stuff. But it's good to kind of look at it, and it's like kind of a look at, or more like a direct attack at saying punk is getting a little too comfortable, in their opinion. You take that for what you will. All right. The next one, we get a instrumental track. Brutus Poem number 5. It is all instrumental. And the note that I have here, it sounds like a garage band loop that I would make in high school. Very much so. It has xylophone, has some synth. It's almost like an intermission of the record. We're not quite halfway through, but it is a little bit of an intermission. Experimental in the noises and the things that they use. It really does sound like a garage band loop. I love garage band, and I messed around with it so much in high school and made like sweet loops and ties, and it's like this sounds exactly like it. Just took me back to there. Obviously, this came before that, but it's yeah, maybe a palate cleanser of the record if you really need one. I don't think you do. I mean, if you really like sit and analyze all of the lyrics and all the meanings of the songs, like you can overthink some things and get a little stressed out probably. But I don't know that you really need a palate cleanser at this point. But they were being experimental with this. So, and honestly, when I say they're being experimental about it, I don't know if they were. I don't know what they sounded like before this record, because this is all the exposure I have of Refused, and I know this is kind of the go-to Refused album that you have to listen to if you want to get into them. Now, the song that kind of gets a lot of people into Refused is the next one, which I had heard previously, New Noise. So that garage band kind of loop continues into the intro of New Noise, and then just coming in strong right in your face is the screaming vocal saying, "Can I scream?" This is I love this song. I really do. It is so fun, and even it gives you, it says, "Can I scream? Yeah, we lack the motion to move in the new beat to the new beat," and then it gives a little random woo. It's got this great opening riff that just smacks you in the friggin' face. It's got gang vocals. It has a lot of shifts, and it's just talking about how it says, "We lack motion to move to the new beats. It's here for us to admire if we can afford the beauty of it." It's talking about punk needs to evolve, and I think it has. I think for them, it was very much like do or die. We got to change what's going on in the world of punk, or it needs to go away. It says, "Because money buys the access and we can't pay the cost. How can we expect anyone to listen if we are using the same old voice?" Getting a little tired, getting a little repetitive in the world of the punk world, as far as they see it. And then we need to challenge that. And this is kind of like their philosophy. This is it. This is what they want to go on. All of the whole like vibe of this record, I think, can be summarized by this song, slap dab in the middle of the record. It's their signature song, and I think one of the most defining tracks probably of that time in the world of hardcore. A ton of bands have covered this song back in the day, like The Used. It was featured on Tony Hawk Underground, which Tony Hawk, when I was looking at the T episodes, I was considering looking at Tony Hawk Pro Skater, their soundtrack for the first video game, but I did go to this one. Both of them were great choices. A line that really sticks out to me: great words won't cover ugly action, which I think you can really like insert into maybe the punk world, maybe your life, maybe the political world. It's true. Great words will not cover ugly action. If you're not doing anything or you're doing something terrible, your words aren't going to do it. Words are that. Words. Actions speak louder than words. And that's kind of what they're saying here. From what I think, from what I've kind of gathered. It then moves into the Refused Party Program, the shortest track on the record, a whopping 2 minutes and 30 seconds, which is really short compared to most of the other songs on this. And it's not a ton of lyrics. You know, this is the pulse, this is the sound, this is the beat of the new generation. So it's kind of almost carrying over this ideology from New Noise that you're getting into. It's fast, it's short, and it's in your face. And it could be a political manifesto in some regards as well. I mean, the last half of the song is yeah, refused party program. This is the rhythm, or this is the movement, this is the rhythm, this is the noise of the revolution. That's all you need. Sometimes less is more. You don't need to have a 10-minute song with endless, like, intricate, deep, well thought out lyrics to be impactful and to be thought provoking. They did that in 2 minutes and 38 seconds. One of my favorite tracks on the record for this one. I really did enjoy the Refused Party Program. We then get protest song 68. Brings you back into that jazz influence. It has a little post-rock dynamic to it. Opening line is, to sing, you must first open your mouth. You must have a pair of lungs and a little knowledge of music. All right. So is protest music still effective? They're asking this in 1998. Now, I don't know my history or whatever, but I don't really think a lot of war or anything is going on at this time. Maybe it was. Well, I mean, look at now. Look at in 2026, we have had a smattering of protest music. We've had a smattering of wild and crazy social events going on. People getting killed in the street for nothing. Nothing. People getting put in cages because their skin is brown. Insane. And people are revolting against that, I think, for a greater good. And it is a good question. Does the protest music, is it effective? It brings like-minded people together. And I think that's impactful. I think that's powerful. Is it changing the world? I don't know. I really don't know. It's ironic that in 2026, with all like the political spectrum, and I'm not going to shy away from who I am. I'm a very like open-minded, I'm a liberal dude. That's who I am. I don't force my thoughts onto people, but I'd be willing to have conversations with people. But when you have this protest music, it's me and people who agree are going to be together. And sometimes it's like we got to get to the other side a little bit. And it's ironic that a lot of times people on the other side of the spectrum are using the same songs that we're using, but they're using it for a different meaning. And that shows the power of music. It's subjective, and maybe you are able to apply it to your situation or your beliefs. It might not necessarily be the true belief of what the songwriter was trying to do, but that's what, how many people on the Republican side have used the Rage Against the Machine song in their campaign when that's not its intended use. That's just, it's food for thought, if you will. I think this is a thought provoking, and it's kind of like the band is willing to push outside these hardcore conventions as well within that, questioning if protest music works, but also maybe questioning if punk rock is still what it was until now. I don't know. Very subjective, which is nice. Get you thinking. Who knew? Who knew you'd be thinking so much? The next one, Refused Are Fucking Dead. It is a 5-minute song, dark, chaotic, has this like dissonant guitar to it a little bit. And I think it's talking about their band's own demise. We don't have the patience to deal with it with battered bodies and puckered lips. We don't have the patience to deal with it. A naive secret for the new romantics. Being a little self-aware. The band did break up, I think, a little bit after this release. They got back together and they've done other things. And we'll talk about kind of like where they're at now a little bit later in the show. But yeah, it's kind of like almost like a self prophecy, if you will. All good things must come to an end at some point, right? Then you get the title track, The Shape of Punk to Come. Hey, baby, you never felt this good. Freedom through the stereo, and you wish you could. You have electronic kind of vibes, electronic sounds in here, a little dancey, a little hardcore. It's just this mesh of everything, and it's continuing the narrative, continuing the theme. Punk has got to reinvent itself all of the time. It is just kind of the thesis statement. It's the in the education world we would say this is the shape of punk to come is a topic sentence that relates back to the thesis of punk needs to continually invent itself and change if it wants it to be impactful and not just blend with everything else and go the way of the dodo bird. Good song. We then get the second to last song. I'm going to try to say the name correctly, but I cannot guarantee it. Tannhauser / Drive. So where do we go from here? Is the opening line. This is a long one. This is like 8-minute song. It's got some ambient passages. Again, jazz with spoken word, and then that hardcore climax of it. And I think, it says disoriented but alive. Boredom won't get me tonight. Let's bring the city to life, to light tonight. I think it has a little bit of a meaning or a little bit of a message saying, let's look at being different. Let's look at being a little alienated from our society and embrace it almost and maybe unite somehow. Boredom won't get me tonight. Those are the last 4 lines, which is nice. Yeah, I get bored sometimes too. And then we get the Apollo program was a hoax. The final song of the record, petrol, bombs, and barricades, anything to have our say, consequence of no choice at all. It's very kind of chaotic. In the end, it has these heavy riffs. Looking at distrust of systems, media, authority. Look at that now in 2026. It's crazy. The themes that we see reoccurring in 2026 were big deals and thoughts that people had back in 1998. 1998, when I was 7 years old, January 1st, I was just like worried about what my next snack is going to be. When am I going to nap? I need to learn how to spell the word Wednesday. That was kind of my biggest worry. And then these dudes are like, we got to look at the distrust of the systems and we're scared. Not scared, but, we got to look at this kind of stuff. Suck on my words for a while. Choke in the truth of a million dead. There is no prestige in your title. We are after your head. That's pretty intense. I wonder how stressed out these guys were. Probably a little stressed out, but boy, did they make a really thought-provoking and interesting record. Really, like I said, why did this change? Maybe did this change punk? Was the shape of punk to come like a manifesto or a pre something of what it is now. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think a lot of punk bands that I listen to now, they do get experimental. They've tried different styles. A lot of different punk bands have tried different styles and have explored musical talents. The Refuse here, we got jazz, ambient music, electronica, spoken word. I know Black Flag kind of dabbled in the world of spoken word as well with Henry Rollins, but I don't think, the spoken word here isn't as pretentious as it was with Henry Rollins, in my opinion. It's a punk record, but it's not what you expect from a 90s punk band. It's very post-hardcore. Dude, it's everything. It's kind of crazy, but they broke up in 1998 after this, and then the vocalist formed the International Noise Conspiracy, which blended rock, politics, soul, and punk as well. Other members formed a band called Text and later AC4. And they reunited and they released an album called Freedom and War Music. And then they did kind of a farewell run. Their final show took place in 2025. But from my understanding, they're doing another band with all the same dudes, and it's just not called Refused anymore. So Refused technically does not exist anymore. It'd probably be a hell of a show to go see. I don't know what the other albums sound like because I haven't listened to them. I just know that even in 2026, this album has made a resurgence and people are really digging it. People are really into it. I think it's because a lot of the themes are pretty common questions and pretty common occurrences of what we're battling now in 2026. Am I happy that punk didn't necessarily change in the way that Refused wanted? I think so. I like the experimentation on this, but you can't take away the power of like the Ramones. You can't take away the pop punk sounds and stuff. I think it's evolved for sure over the decades, but not to the point where Refused was trying to do or maybe trying to promote. And that's okay. This album is like a standalone record that I think all punk enthusiasts probably should listen to. And I'm surprised it took me this long to dive into it. I'm glad I did. It's good. I enjoy it. I'm into it. But I really think they understood some things that were going on, and they did some great things for the music world. It's ironic because there was another band that created an EP called "The Shape of Punk Is Dumb," which they styled it this in a similar way. The art is similar, by a band called Dead American, and I actually enjoy those songs as well. I enjoy that EP, Cove of Seosin, if you ever listen to that. But it's his other band, and they're kind of like a hardcore band too. It looks pretty much dead on to the same record, but it says Dead American, The Shape of Punk Is Dumb, a musical abomination in short bursts, which is pretty funny. But yeah, just nonetheless, this record was impactful, whether you are critiquing it, whether you are embracing it. It's something that people have had conversations about, and I suggest that you go listen to it. It is good. New Noise, you can start with that if you really want to get a taste of what's going on. I would start with New Noise. Otherwise, I would recommend you just hop in, get rolling, start with song number 1, listen to the whole thing, and check it out. So that is The Shape of Punk to Come. Listening to PS for Punk, you can get merch and all that kind of stuff. Well, it's linktr.ee/P is for punk. Get you to all the socials, get you to all the things, and you get some shirts and all that kind of mumbo jumbo that you can get. If you want a sticker or whatever, shoot me an email, peaceforpunkpodcast@gmail.com, and maybe I'll get you something set your way. Appreciates the love. I know I'm a day late here releasing this episode. Seems like every time I want to record, we have severe weather, and working in the radio station, I have to allow people to deal with the severe weather in the studio. People getting to safety and shelter a little more important than me flapping my gums about music. But I do love doing it, and we'll see you soon.